guys. Good afternoon and welcome to the Service Without Excuses podcast. So glad to have you here. Sponsored by Sotellus, Sotellus.com. It is the Cadillac of review management software. If you know anything about me, I think it's a great marketing tactic, great business tactic to manage your reviews and make sure they're dispersed with the great work that you do every single day. So make sure you take a look at it. Go to Sotellus.com/Rob Lyon, and you will get a nice setup with them, and they'll take care of your family-owned business. Love them. We use them. My service business. It's awesome. I have a very special guest on today. We were just talking about a couple things. We're both musicians, which is really nice. So we're able to explain some of the marketing things and sales things based on somewhat of both of our backgrounds. And her father actually was a legendary sales trainer that impacted me personally when I had to learn how to sell. I had no idea. But what I found was if you put the message there correctly, you believed it, and you were persistent with something called pigheaded discipline, which we'll get into a little bit later, you can be very successful. And I can tell you that's the person that taught me how to sell. This is his daughter, Amanda Holmes. Welcome, my friend. How are you?
Thank you so much. Happy to be here.
Yeah. Where are you at, in California?
I'm in Minnesota.
Oh, my.
I know.
Is it still cold up there?
Not really today. But we'll see.
It's like 60, 70 degrees here in New Jersey. I'm really close to the Atlantic Ocean, so I'm not far, about 15 minutes or so. So we get a lot of wind, and we get some really weird weather. You know, I'm from the mountains originally, so it's a different area, but I lived there. I lived in New York City, and then I lived here, and they're three entirely different climates. It gets really hot in New York City too, as well. I try to tell people that, New York, are you kidding me? In the summertime? It's hot. It really is crazy. But Amanda, thank you so much. Welcome. Amanda is the CEO of Chet Holmes International. Chet Holmes wrote the best-selling book. You'll see a little bit of a diagram over here with the Ultimate Sales Machine. If you haven't read the Ultimate Sales Machine, oh, thank you. And it's behind us too as well. Behind me, my big head. You can't really see it too well, but it is the greatest, in my opinion, sales book. Now, I'll tell you a little story here. There are three people that have massively impacted my life. In the copywriting standpoint, it's a gentleman named Dan Kennedy. Dan is a brilliant copywriter, brilliant marketing strategist as well. And I have studied him for years. The guy I've studied the most is a gentleman named Jay Abraham, which I know you know. I am a strategist. I love strategy before tactics, and coming up with marketing strategies from scratch, from nothing, is what I love to do, from dirt, essentially. And then, of course, your father, when it came to sales, there were other people like Tony Robbins and Brian Tracy that influenced me, but they were the triage, so to speak, or the triple threat, I would say, that really impacted a lot. So it means a lot for you to be here today to talk about, your father's book and really what it's about, the Dream 100 core story, which are true. I mean, I can't tell you. I'll give you a personal example before we go any further. I used to work for a carpet cleaning company. And I decided one day I wanted to build up the commercial side of it, commercial carpet cleaning side. And person to work for it goes, well, go at it, see what you can do. I literally put that Dream 100 into place and said, how am I going to put 100 customers in the area, the region we're in, get in the door, develop a system that is going to benefit them if they do it, and they do it more often. Sounds very much like it. So I put a system that was slanted. It said, this is the cost for it if you do it once a year. This is the cost if you do it every 3 months. This is the cost you do every 6 months. So forth and so on. And it's scaled so they had an incentive to maintain it a little bit better. It worked unbelievable. We probably did $150,000 that first year just in that. Now, this is a business that's about $1.2 million. So $150,000 is a lot of money to the bottom line from something that had nothing, using the Dream 100. So please let our listeners know a little bit more about you if they don't.
Wow, I love that story. Well, just for everybody that's listening, it's 7 times more expensive to go after a new client than it is to sell a current one. So the fact that you were able to increase how much each of your clients spent with you is just brilliant. Congratulations on that front. Let's see, we've assisted over 250,000 businesses now. We've been around since 1991. My father carried that torch and he passed 8 years ago. And that's when I inherited the business. And I'm really a walking example of his work because I was a singer-songwriter prior, knew nothing of the business. And the next day had a couple hundred staff, all double my age, and had no idea what to do. And I did what everybody else did. I read my father's book. I studied his training programs online, and we've been able to successfully carry on his legacy. Me and my team, I stepped in as CEO 6 years ago, and here we are today, a thriving, beautiful company. We just doubled sales last year, which is big for COVID times, and I'm grateful to be here.
That's so awesome. That's so awesome. Um, I just thinking of a couple of stories. What we talked about the musician side of it. And what I just said before about pig-headed discipline, we both know in the music business, you got to have some serious persistence. And if you've ever experienced it and tried to quote unquote make it as a musician, whether you're trying to make it on a cruise ship, if you're trying to make it with a record label, if you're trying to whatever as a solo artist, you had to have insane pig-headed discipline. I can't tell you how many times I've used that term over my lifetime, but it's probably in the thousands now at this point in time. But I look back at it and I didn't know what it was when I was doing it. I just know I came from an Irish background. My mother said, get out there, knock it out and be persistent about it. So we went out there and promoted and didn't really take no for an answer. Like we would hit somebody sometimes 7, 8, 9, 10 times till they basically said it. I even did that in business, starting a business in Staten Island, where I go around. Some people would say, hey, welcome, come on in. Some people would tell me where to go. And it wasn't in a pleasant place. So, it was really having that pig-headed discipline to continue to do it, even when you had a lot of obstacles in place. I think we both probably learned a lot of that from the rigors of the music business. It is that difficult. How has that influenced you? This is probably a question you don't get normally. How has that influenced you coming out, starting at a very young age to be the CEO of a multi-million-dollar a year company? I can't even imagine.
I love that. Well, I'll give you another stat just because I have random pieces of stats at all times because I also have a research firm, right, that uses market data to help you sell things. But 80% of sales are made in the fifth to 12th contact, and yet only 10% of salespeople have the pig-headed discipline and determination to go past 3 contacts. So great job on that front, being pig-headed enough to go after them. For me personally, I found it funny that, you see a singer-songwriter that would be sitting there and maybe playing some music in the corner, and they wouldn't really ever, they maybe once in a set, they'd say, hey, I have a tip jar if you want to give, I'd be grateful for it. And it's the same thing with business owners today, right? I started a business, I have my product, and then you just expect people to come. And they don't. You have to do all these things to make sure that you're creating top of mind awareness where you are just in their face, in their place, in their space, so much so that they think of you when they're finally ready to buy, right? You have to be there to offer them such great education today because so much more of our buying decision happens online now instead of just face to face. Same in carpet cleaning. And what I learned the most from singing, I would have to say, is all of those gigs where I would sit there in a room and, normally people would be a little bit quieter and just kind of playing in the corner, maybe at a coffee shop, let's say. I would get every single person in that room involved where I would know, okay, can I convert this entire room to buy my CD? So after I'd converted the entire room to buy my CD, then I go, okay, what can I upsell? I couldn't help myself. It was just, the ultimate sales machine father in me would just continue. So I wrote songs about my tip jar. I had bits about me and my tip jar. There were the craziest things on my tip jar. I mean, every chance I got, I'd sing a song and then I'd talk about the tip jar. I'd sing a song, right? Even if I used to do this other bit where if I close the whole room, then the way that I would upsell them is I'd say, if you'd like, I will walk on my hands across the stage if you fill my tip jar. So everyone's already bought the CD, right? And I'm just trying to think, how can I get everybody to fill my tip jar? And people from the audience would grab my tip jar and walk around the room and go, you better give her, I want to see her walk on her hands. Are you giving to this tip jar? I mean, that is the ultimate raving fandom, right? That your fans walk around as billboards for you. So the question really is, what experience can you create where they feel that they're involved, where they feel like they want to rally for you because you've done such great work? So I think that was probably some of the, all of those gigs, just gigging on the street, trying to make ends meet, really helped me on the business side as well.
Yeah, because you're doing something over and over again and you don't know what you can't do I mean, especially in that type of, you're like, yeah, you say I'm not going to be good at this. All right, no problem. They just you go at somebody and you say, okay, I can do this. And as a musician, you always strive to make your art better. That's just what it is. I was predominantly a cover musician. I did write songs, never did a darn thing with them, but it's still art. I'm playing somebody else's, but I'm making my own interpretation. When you're writing your own song, you're writing your own. Well, your business is the same way. Your business is your art. I forget. I might have heard Seth Godin say something along these lines. I'm just gonna, not to paraphrase it, but it is your art. Your business is how you're allowing people that want to see your art enjoy your art. That could be through your services, that could be through your products, that could be through anything. But the better presentation you make for it, the more you're gonna do. I heard a guy I just had on the other day, Howard Partridge. He talked about all the world is a stage. We have here in New York City Broadway, and we have Broadway, we have off Broadway, and we have way off Broadway. The show in way off Broadway, by the way, is phenomenal. Just if people come to New York City, obviously when these shows are back up and running, they're all incredible. You're never going to be that type of person, but every single person is trying to get their art across. It doesn't matter what it is. If it's a particular actor, if it's a musician, they're trying to get their art across. You as a business owner, I feel, are trying to get your art across too as well. And the better you do at art or performing, the better you're going to do in the arena called business. And I think it's just been a dynamic thing. I was listening to something you were saying before, and I know your father was big into education. He was like the godfather of education marketing, educating stats. And I mean, you really think about it. When we're going into a club as a musician and we say we want X amount of money to play there, COVID pricing now, so we're a little bit further down. But let's just use the musician category because this is the easiest probably to work with. We can't command fees that are out of whack with what we're producing. Your business can't command fees out of whack with what it's producing, but it should get every nickel of what you are producing. And the more somebody sees and hears your business and sees and hears the benefits to using you and the education behind it, that tells people, wow, they do this. This is why I'm such a fan of reviews. It gives people the picture in their mind that this is statistically why you should use it. Well, here's a story. You know, somebody goes out and does a job, a competitor goes out and does a job, and they don't do a very good job. And the customer goes, wow, that's the best I'm going to get. And they decide they don't want to hire another professional because of the poor experience they had with that particular person. They never give you the opportunity. So it's your job to educate them, in my opinion, to do something better.
Yes. So I'll, again, market data. I have so much of it. Let's take automotive for an example. 10 years ago, they would go, a prospect would go to 6 different dealerships before making a buying decision. Today, they go to 13 websites and only 1.8 dealerships. So the decision is being made online, especially if you're in B2B as well. The average prospect looks at 5 pieces of content before making buying or before reaching out and talking to a salesperson. And especially a lot of research shows around, like you're saying, with recommendations online, as well as I want to talk on social media about my preferences rather than talking to a person immediately. So you really have to think, what am I doing to give them that education that they're already doing? Because if I'm not educating them, the guy down the street that's doing the same thing is going to be able to educate them. And one of my favorite educations would be the 5 things you need to know before hiring a product or service like mine. Right. So what can you do to preempt your competition where you're saying, okay, before you hire somebody like me, these are the things you need to know. And then everything you give them debunks everyone else. Right. Do you want me to give an example of this or?
Yeah, please feel free.
So we had a client out of Turks and Caicos. They were a photography company for weddings. And all of these little digital nomads were coming in and moving to Turks and Caicos and said, well, I could just have my camera and take wedding photography photos. And they were costing half the price of what this, established business was charging. And they were about to go out of business. So instead of just accepting that, they hired us and we put through a training on the 5 things you need to know before having a destination wedding. This was a crucial turning point for them. So no matter how many different photographers showed up in Google Ads, everyone wanted to know that education of what every bride should know right before a destination wedding. Oh, how interesting. That's what that prospect is thinking of at that time. Then as they would educate them on that, then they would go to the 5 things you need to know before hiring a wedding photographer. And I'll tell you right now, number 1 was you need to make sure that you have a wedding photographer that's been in business for at least 10 years. And here's why, right? Number 2, you need to make sure that they've been on the island for at least 5 years, because there's so much to be said about how the reflection from the water and the sun and Turks and Caicos is different from everywhere else, blah, 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 blah. So he would just educate them. Number 3, you want to make sure that they have this kind of cameras, because if they don't have anything at least this level or better, then you're going to get grainy, you're going to get under processed, the resolution's going to be poor, right? So he just completely preempted all of his competition and won back that territory because of the education that was involved. So that's a good story.
I think it is. And I'll add one ups to it. You only have one wedding at one time.
Very true.
Yeah. So if anybody's been married, if they make a mistake at one wedding and you've got a bunch of guests, let's say you've got your first wedding and you've got a few hundred guests there, and that wedding photographer screws up, how are you fixing that?
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. We hit that pain a bunch.
Yeah, I just, as soon as you said that, I'm going, oh man. I mean, there's certain things, I remember the commercial where it said, the $10 haircuts. And then there was the guy down the road that said, we fixed the $10 haircuts. And it was truly brilliant. And of course, the $10 haircut person went into business because, yes, they undercut him, but they didn't know their cost of doing business. They had no money left over to market. And I've seen this, especially in the service business sector. The businesses I've seen that have succeeded and really grown have said, I'm going to plow more money into this, even during COVID, because what's going to happen? We're in a down market. We'll call it a down market. It's kind of a mix of 2 markets right now, but we'll call it a down market. I like leveraging a business in a down market because a lot of your competition that has undercapitalized or has not stayed with it or said, let's shut off all the marketing, let's stop selling, let's just go under a rock, they all go out of business. And listen, I'm not trying to put anybody out of business, but it's the reality of the world we live in. And if you want to grow, the biggest thing you can do is sustain it. I remember back in February, March, I just signed up for a heavy SEO campaign. Okay. Spent a bunch of money. I was going to spend a bunch of money every month. COVID hit. Governor of Jersey says you can't work. Oh man, this is awful. What do? Very simple. Wait till you get your approval to go, and you decide I'm going to plow ahead, because SEO takes a period of time, like every campaign takes, in order to make an impact. It's not overnight. Nothing is overnight. Rome certainly wasn't built overnight. So, I made sure that I put those things in place and I didn't touch them. As painful as it was to write that check every single month, as painful as it was to do that, and the gentleman I did it with, he says, I have 10 people. You're the only one that continued to plow through. 9 people cut their advertising. And that is the dumbest, in my opinion, dumbest thing you can ever do. If something is working, don't stop doing it. By the way, we're up 25% last year. So, and now I have a bunch of new customers where I don't even use a lot of Google stuff to advertise. Now it's organic SEO, reviews, all that kind of stuff. Don't stop. And as a musician, I'm going back to that again. We don't stop. As a musician, you keep plowing ahead. The successful ones do, by the way. There is no overnight success. I was explaining it to somebody one time, Jason Mraz. You know who Jason is. Jason's a very talented singer-songwriter, unbelievably nice guy, by the way, from San Diego. There are 500 Jason Mrazes around the San Diego area. Jason was very, very, very persistent at getting his name out there and played a bunch of coffee shops and developed a huge organic following, much like the Dave Matthews Band did. And he just became a superstar. But there's a lot of people just as talented as he was. If you know anything about music, they're just out there. There is something that separates you: the pig-headed discipline, the persistence, the drive to build a better robot, a better machine, which is your business. I think these things are really integral at making a business grow and thrive and prosper. And I just feel people get too scared. And in the service industry, the ones that have succeeded have just said, all right, we couldn't control anything before. The world's going to do what it's going to do. We're going to have a change of power, a change of, presidency, whatever. We can't control those things. We can try to vote, but it's only our vote. So what do we do in the meantime? We just take it and say, let's plow ahead. Let's keep focused, and let's drive with, again, pig-headed discipline.
Yeah, I want to back that up with, so a lot of the time what we see with business owners is that they think they need to do 4,000 different things, right? It's the shiny object. And one of my father's greatest quotes is, mastery isn't about doing 4,000 things. It's about doing 12 things 4,000 times. He took that from being a martial arts karateka, fifth degree black belt. For us as musicians, right? How many times do we practice scales? Right. Or, if you've played basketball, how many times do you shoot free throws, right? It's just that repetition is the mother of all skills. So if you know the key impact areas of your business, you just continually, with pig-headed discipline and determination, practice those key areas. So maybe it's the dream strategy, right? You're practicing how to get the best clients, those better buyers that buy more from you more often. How do you go after them and need a consistent effort to do that? How do you manage your time? That's another key skill set that every business owner should know, because billionaires have the same 24 hours as everyone else, right? They're just masters at being smarter about their time. So in the book, The Ultimate Sales Machine, all of these 12 core competencies for doubling sales are there, because you really don't have to master 4,000 different things. Let's just continually work on just those 12 over and over and over again.
You have to make it to a certain degree robotic. You got to make sure that it's done whether you're there or not. I came from the disaster restoration field, which means, easiest terms possible, you have a house and you have a problem in the house. Could be a fire, flood, God forbid. None of that stuff ever happens to you, but any of that stuff happens. Now I'm Mr. Business Owner. I'm sitting there going and putting something together. And I say, you know what? I'll do it. I'll do it tonight. I'll do it tomorrow. And then a $10,000 flood comes in, or God forbid something happens there. Days changed. There's no time to sit there and play. So you have to get really, really focused upon getting things done in the very small window you have called time. Like I had 2 big jobs going on today. I had one other discussion with somebody and in the interview, and you have to block off your time and say, this is what's going on. This is the time I'm going to be here. You can't say, I'll do it tomorrow. Doing it tomorrow is a fast recipe for failure, in my opinion, because tomorrow is never guaranteed. Nothing is guaranteed. I'm not talking about life and death. I'm talking about things changing and life changes. And going forward a little bit with this, what are some strategies? We have people that are in pest control, carpet cleaning, as I said, disaster restoration things, all service businesses. We go into people's homes primarily, bring a truck up to the house, the annoying guys, mostly an annoying pest, as Dan Kennedy would say. So, you're going there, nobody jumps up and down and says, I need my carpets cleaned. It's just a nuisance. But they're got to go in and do these types of jobs. What are some of the best strategies from your experience you learned from your father and personally advising service businesses? I know you deal with a ton of them. What is some simple strategies you could tell somebody right over the webcast now?
Yeah, so right now, based on what we're getting from our clientele, a huge objection that's happening is because of COVID, right? They're just too afraid for people to come into the home. How can you educate your prospect to let them know how important carpet cleaning is, or pest control is when it comes to COVID, right? Because COVID attacks low immune systems, right? And that's who is more susceptible. So wouldn't you want a cleaner environment? And hey, did you know that when you have, dust mites in your carpets, you're 5 times more likely to get asthma? And hey, isn't COVID attack your respiratory, right? So everyone that wants to combat COVID, wouldn't they want the healthiest home, because they're spending more and more time in their home? I made up that stat, by the way. You have to find it. I don't know that stat exactly.
No, but you're absolutely true, because the carpet is a filter. So
right,
I had replace it or clean it.
Right. I had Panasonic as a client, and we grew them by 400% over 9 years. And the amount of data about how poisonous our homes are today, and all of the things that we put in them, we think that we're safe inside, but actually we're just sitting in a boat full of chemicals and mold. And if you can educate your clientele on this, then it makes sense to be saving your environment rather than feeling that you're hindering it by bringing somebody into your home. That I know that goes then into, if anybody wanted to pick up chapter 4 of the Ultimate Sales Machine, it's free. You can just type into Google or go to chetholmes.com/CH4. That's our free chapter on education-based marketing, how to get 9 times more impact from every move you make. That would talk a little bit more about education. But if I were any home services provider right now, I would be educating the heck out of that. We've seen a lot of people getting more publicity. If you can get to the press, to the local news, and share with them how important it is for people to have a clean home today with what's happening with COVID, and back it up with a bit of market data, holy cow, you could really make a killing right now, because that's what that's top of mind for them right now, right? Is how do I protect myself from COVID? And it's not just it drives me crazy, the masks. I'm sorry, because I know so much about your immune system, and that's such a small piece that can assist in boosting your immune system. Why not add more garlic into your meals, because it's a natural antibiotic? Right. Wow. Why don't we talk about that? When I climbed Kilimanjaro, the only reason why I didn't get sick like everyone else that climbed, because of all of the bugs, and it's a very strenuous hike, right? It's the largest freestanding mountain in the world. I ate raw garlic every day. That's how I got through it. That's how my immune system was able to power through. Why don't we use things like garlic? Why don't we tell people these are the things you can do to be more healthy? And I think, from avoiding rats, from avoiding asthma with dirty floors, all of these things can assist with boosting immune system. We should be talking about this. We should be educating about this.
Yeah, and I often, so I understand a little bit about PPP, obviously, from disaster restoration. These masks, people got to realize, and I'm not going down the road of saying what's medically this or not. You're breathing out, you're exhaling carbon dioxide. So essentially, you're the pipe on the car. You certainly wouldn't put your mouth next to the car pipe, because you'd be deceased very quickly. When you're holding these things on, you're not breathing. So it never ceases to amaze me. And I'm offending any person right now by this. I'm sorry, but this is the truth. I walk down the street in the urban area, and people wearing masks out in the open instead of breathing in fresh air. And that is insane, folks. There's no mentality. And think about it. Again, you're breathing something that is not supposed to be in your body. You're breathing it right back. If you go and get a stronger mask, you're even breathing more of it back. So at least buy a crappy surgical mask so you can still get some air coming in and going back out. Anyway, that's my PSA for the podcast.
Yeah. I legal note. I am not a certified doctor. I just think that we need to learn more about the immune system and how we can protect ourselves. I studied for the last 10 years with an Indian saint because of all that my father went through with being a cancer patient, and I went the alternative route. So there's quite a bit we could talk on there.
You're smart. I had 2 relatives, both that passed away from cancer. My aunt was the reason I went into business. I worked for somebody else. And one day she said to me, she goes, "Rob, you're entirely too driven, entirely too," in her words, bright, which is debatable, to be working for somebody else at this point in time. You should really think about it. And literally 3 months later, she had liver cancer, and she was gone in about a month. So it's personal to me, because I can relate to that. I can relate to the emotion I felt with somebody that said to me, "You need to go out and make your own trail." And it certainly wasn't easy. It's never easy to do, but you get the opportunity to go out there and do it every single day and make a difference. Make your art, make your position in the marketplace. Let people see how good you are. If you're really that good, people will give you business. I'm in New Jersey, highly competitive market. Okay. New York is even more competitive, but they're pretty much the same market. And I've always done well. And when I came here to New Jersey, I had a friend of mine that had a boat, a lot of boats here close. And I had some equipment because I'd sold my interest in the business in New York. It was a disaster restoration business. So he says, "Go ahead, and I need the boat cleaned. Do you mind doing?" Yeah, man, I got time. No problem. Go over, bring my machine up, start cleaning the boat. Everything's fine. Well, what's next to a boat? Another boat. You go to the next boat. Guy comes over and says, "Hey, can you do my boat?" Yeah, no problem. I'll pay you for it. No problem. So we go over and do it. And then he says, "Listen, can you do my house?" I was like, well, okay. I was kind of holding back and not really getting, but sure. So I go and I do his house with the equipment. It comes out really nice. He says, "Listen, bro, I'm going to tell you something right now. This is the Wild West down here. This isn't like New York City where people will do a good job or they won't do a good job. They show up. They're probably, this is the Wild West. People don't even show up down here. If you go out and show up and do what you're doing right now and present the same thing to people, build up reputation for doing it, you'll never want for work. He's right. You know, if you do the job right and people talk about you and spread the word and talk about the benefits, you know, think about this in a review. Everybody's in a review that writes is talking about the reasons they bought from you. They're not talking about, well, sky was sunny. It was a beautiful day. He showed up to clean my carpets. Well, they don't say that. They say he came in, he or she came in. They were professional. They were on time. They quoted me a price. They stuck to the price. They couldn't have been friendlier. They were safe. They wore the right masks. They wore whatever in the house. They were worried about my health. I couldn't be happier. I would highly recommend them. They're giving all the bullet points, all the statistics to why somebody should hire you in a review, in a simple piece of review. And they're getting it from somebody they don't know. So it's a stat. It's not something personal because this person is somebody they've never met, probably will never meet. I think having those statistical things and those different reasons, the facts, we've talked about facts. There's people, politicians use the word facts. We're offering some real facts. This is what it does. If you maintain your floors and you don't just let them build up and really go downhill, you'll keep them longer. Therefore, your investment is better sought after. You're not going to spend more money by not doing anything. You're going to spend more money by not doing anything. So it's my opinion that it's a good thing to build up the reputation, build up the reasons why people want to use you, build up the wall, essentially, of all those reasons, all those statistics, all those great benefits, not just features, but the great benefits to it.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah, I'm sorry. I figured I'd do a debate back and forth, but see, you brought up some really good things, and it's I really feel that if people would take and stick to it and do it and implement it and not second guess it and just go for it, use that pig-headed discipline to push themselves forward and not worry about, well, what if? Yeah, what if you fail? Guess what? We all fail. What if we all do something? What if we make a difference? Well, there's people in this world that are obviously making a difference. There's people in this world that obviously succeed. So anyway, that's my rant for, I don't usually do this, but yeah, what are you going to do? Meant to be. Some people bring it out in you. Thanks, Amanda.
No, I think people need to get out of their heads at the moment. There's a lot of business owners that are fairly stuck in what was and wanting to maintain that versus adapting. And at the moment, there's so much change. I read in Forbes that since COVID started, 1 million businesses were started, which was more in that given period than we'd seen in the last 20 years combined. So there's more innovation happening than ever before. And if you're unwilling to take that leap of, okay, I'm going to try something new, it's going to be a really hard time. You're going to have a really hard time.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. I mean, you got to get going. Like you just brought up a statistic I would have never thought. Now, who would have thought in a time like this that people would be opening the doors like this and saying, you know what, my business is downsizing. I lost my job, unfortunately, which could have been the best thing for you. And you have this ability to just go out and spread your own. A friend of mine just bought a franchise yesterday, and he was a union electrician for years in the city. And he bought the franchise and he's going for it. And he just said, you know what, now's the time. I've made my money doing it. I'm never going to, if I keep going, I'm going to be too old to really build this thing up. I want to build up around me, my daughters, and do something with it. And I was like, this is a Tony, this is a guy who's been to many, many Tony Robbins. So I'm sure he's seen your father at some point in time. He knows the power of it. And if you get that drive to do it and you keep at it and you maintain, what did George Bush say, that famous, stay the course, keep going, and don't worry about what's knocking you down. Things are going to knock you down. You climb up you just talked about something. You climbed up Mount Kilimanjaro. The percentage of people, by the way, that probably have done this in this world are within one of 1%, I'm sure, especially that made it to the top. But things could fall at you at any time climbing that mountain, right?
Yeah, a gentleman died the day that I summited, for sure.
It's so think about those rocks can still come at you. Do you stop? Do you just crawl backwards? Or do you keep going? And I think, as a business person, having that drive and motivation to just say, the rock might hit me, but it's better to go up to the top than roll to the bottom.
I think a really important thing that everyone can take away as a business owner that's listening is listening to your prospects right now. Listen to them. It's not about just throwing something on the wall. So, for instance, in January, I got introduced to this new social media platform called Clubhouse. And it's grown rapidly. So it took 50 years for radio to get to 1 million users. It took Facebook 1 year to get to 1 million users. It's taken Clubhouse 2 months to get to 1 million users. It's absurd. And it's growing at a rapid rate. It's a audio only platform, kind of like what you'd have on a podcast, but people come and go and you can have multiple speakers that come up and speak. And I kept going in these rooms, and I was pleasantly surprised at how many people knew of my company and knew of the book and had been practicing the methodologies. And as I listened to what they were saying about deploying them and the questions that they were asking about implementing them, I realized that there was a huge hole in the market for how to win your biggest clients. They didn't understand that process. It had been passed down to so many different people that it had gotten lost. So I put together, in 45 days, I put together a new online training on how to win your biggest clients. And we launched it, like I said, from cradle to grave in 45 days. We sold 40% more than we had anticipated. And now it's a part of the front end of my business that I'd never imagined before, but it came from listening. And so much of the time we just want to hear ourselves speak. It's painful to listen to all of the junk that's on the internet today. Can you call up some of your prospects? Can you call up some of your old clients? Can you ask them what's going on in their world today? Can you create an offer that speaks to them where they are at right now? What is keeping them up at night? That's why I mentioned this whole education around COVID thing, because what's keeping many Americans up at night right now is, will I get sick? Will my family get sick? Is it safe to go back to work? What's happening with our economy? When will things open? Are they open? So can you answer or give just a little bit more confidence that everything's going to be okay with talking to what their pain point is? You get their attention. You get the entire buyer's pyramid, which is something we teach. You'd get that in chapter 4 if you read it or got the book, and then lead them to you as that solution. So what can you do to listen to your ideal prospects? What can you do to craft something for them that makes sense, that can assist in elevating them out of whatever rut they're in? Because there's so many people in ruts right now.
It's the truth. I just think about I keep going back to that parody of music, but if you write songs nobody wants to hear, then nobody's going to want to buy your songs. So your business is fundamentally no different. So you're just talking about something you guys launched and put out. Please let our listeners know about it. I certainly will put it in the show notes. I'll certainly put the information in here, at where, whatever you think the best resources would be for people that are going to listen to this podcast. But I sincerely appreciate you being here today. Again, I'm sorry I go on a little bit of a rant, but I'm one of those people that just hears something and goes, she's right. This will apply to that. And you've given a ton of great information. I think the biggest is right there. God gave you 2 ears and 1 mouth for a reason. You got to listen. You got to listen.
Yeah. Yeah. If people want to learn more, I think just chetholmes.com is the best place to get all of the resources I mentioned. The free chapter 4. We also have a 3-video series to teach you 3 strategies that we teach on how to double sales. That's a really good resource that people can watch, that video series. And then the dream strategy course that I've just launched, that's also you can find there.
Awesome. I'll make sure the links are put on there, but just really think about some of the things Amanda has said here in this podcast. doing it consistently, doing it over and over again. I was saying this story before, how I went into Staten Island. I clearly do not have a New York accent. I'm clearly not from New York. But I knew there was a highway that went through it, and I bought a lousy list from, I won't mention the company's name because they're a big clearinghouse, but some of the people were not even on this earth anymore. Some people didn't own the business. Some people didn't, but it's a list. And the list told me where people were that had a plumbing license or had a contractor's license. And I didn't know Staten Island, so I had a crappy GPS that was getting me lost everywhere I was at because I wasn't using Google Maps or anything smart. That would have helped. So I hit door to door. And again, some people said, come on in. Some people said, get out of here. I don't want to deal with you. Leave. But we built that list in 2 years to $1.2 million in just primarily Staten Island. Now, that's a big place, 500,000 people, but to do something in 2 years is pretty quick, all by the combination of pig-headed determination and doing something over and over and over. And I visited these people till they got sick of me. But I would always bring new stuff. I'd bring novelty things, bring them pizza. By the way, don't bring bad pizza to somebody in Staten Island from a chain. That is a word of advice to anybody listening to this. If you have any, just don't do it. It's not good. So make sure you fall through, listen to the things that Amanda's talked about here. One of the last things I want to get into I happen to love working with millennials. And I know you're one of them. My stepdaughter is one. They want purpose from my experience. I've managed hundreds of them over the years. And if you can manage, there's a key word, that manage, you'll have great success. And a lot of people are not very good at managing, which means you have to listen. If you're barking orders, you're not a manager, you're barking at somebody. If you're listening to what employees want to do and what they're really good at, you'll find out they're really good at certain things and they really enjoy it. And that's what you should focus on. Yes, they're going to have to do other tasks in the business. But managing, I think it's the easiest people I ever managed in my life, personally, because they wanted purpose and but you had to listen to what they wanted. Oh, well, I like doing this. I like doing this. I like that. I have my nephew just came out with me the other day on a job. And he goes, Rob was the best trainer, man. He said, watch, listen, ask questions. And he said, what do you like? And all these things. I'm like, that's all you have to do is listen. I think that should be the theme of this podcast. Listen, more than anything else. Thank you so much. I really appreciate you being here. I look forward to seeing you on some other things, and you delivered some incredible information. I am a statistic guy because I have to be a statistic guy, but as a musician, you're kind of a number person anyway, whether you like it or not. So you really have delivered some amazing content and some really good ideas to help people get out there, do it, fall through, be persistent, consistent and persistent, I guess would be a good term for it. Just do it over and over again. Make sure you take Amanda up on her offer here. Go to chetholmes.com. Their programs work. I'm a living example of it. I've done it 3 times now. I've used it in everything, and 4 times because I was an employee and did it. So it works. If you work it, it'll work. It's one of those things you have to actually go out there and put the effort out. But if you do, you'll be fine. It all works. I can guarantee.
Thank you, Rob. That means a lot. It
meant everything to me. So your father impacted me and others that I know more than you could ever. Well, it was just listen. And I still listen to I have the DVDs. I even think like cassettes or something where I'd listen to these things over and over and over again. And I go to sleep listening to these, and I'd wake up and go, how do you know that? Oh, wait a minute. I think he said it. Well, I don't remember him saying. I fell asleep. And you started hearing over and over again and implementing these things. So it means a lot. And I know a lot of people in the service industry had know exactly who your father was. And it's amazing what you've done. It's amazing where you've come from, and keep doing it. Keep kicking ass.
Thank you.
No problem. Have a good day. Thank you.
You too.